I've got a few announcements of things coming up, a couple of things to ask, a couple of things for you to think about, a couple of things for you to be a part of. So I just want you to run through these real quick so everybody hears them, kind of knows what's going on. So, as you know, the MPC kids have been doing a food drive. They've been collecting food as different classes, different age groups. They've been going out to the Little White Pantry out here and donating that. I think it's incredible. Really gives them a spirit of giving and an understanding of what it's like to donate. And so for December, it's the 4th through 6th grade class. So if your kid's in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, you can bring non-perishable foods to donate to our little pantry. And so that's something that each class has been doing each month, and they'll collect all of the items, and a month they'll go out there and they will donate them. Let's see, what's the 6th? This Friday is a parents' night out. So if you have a kid, you're welcome to come and drop your kid off this Friday night. It'll be from 5:30 to 8. There's going to be a movie, dress in your pajamas. There's going to be food, and there's going to be some stories. So I hope that all of you will take that time, take advantage of it, and come out to Kids Night Out. Oh, I just deleted the email. Way to go, dude. That's why you don't let the youth minister do the announcements. All right. So here's a quick update. I believe this was from Landon and Sam on Sam's mother, Rhonda. Landon's mom, who is Rhonda. Yes. It says that Sam and I are here with Mom now. She seems better than I have seen her in weeks. Her voice is stronger, and she says that she is feeling better. She is not as confused as she has been the past 2 weeks. She has another follow-up with CARTI tomorrow, and she has an MRI on her brain Saturday. Please continue to pray for her, but things seem slightly better for the moment. So that's some positive news. I know they've been kind of up and down with how things have been going post all of the treatments and surgery and everything. So definitely keep them in your prayers. I also want to ask, this Sunday night, I've sent it out to all of the small group leaders. You might have heard about it through announcements. We're having a youth area-wide, so to speak. It's called Connect. So we have 2 other youth groups, including ours, coming out, and we are going to have a worship. That's from 4:30 to 5. However, after that, all of the students will stay here. Adults, if you come to worship with us, you're dismissed. That's all we'll do with y'all. But if for the youth groups, we'll have class, we'll hang out, we'll eat. Well, part of the eating piece, you don't get to be a part of it, but if you could help, that would be huge. So we need 30 pounds of taco meat to be cooked up, to be seasoned, and to be brought up here. So if you're great at cooking ground beef, that would be huge. If you could bring it up here in a crock pot on Sunday night, if you come to worship, just bring it at 4:30. If not, make sure it's here by 5. We'll eat pretty promptly at 5, a little bit after that. So if you could bring that up here, that would be huge. So if you're willing to do that, if you can do that, find me in between class, now in class when we dismiss, or find me after class and let me know, and I'll put you down on the sheet so we make sure we got all of the pounds of ground beef taken care of. Other than that, that's all the announcements I have that I know of. But I do want us to think about something just very quickly before we go to class. And it's a little thought from Genesis 22. In Genesis 22, it's a story that we all know. If you grew up in the church, you know Abraham and Isaac and the sacrifice and the whole scenario that unfolds there. We know that he went to the mountain and Abraham brings his son up there, full intentions of sacrificing him. God stops him and gives him a ram instead. But what's super interesting throughout that story is that in verse 1, there's a phrase that pops up that's repeated several times. This first phrase is seen again in verse 1, and it says, "After these things, God tested Abraham and said to Abraham," he said, "Here I am." So you notice Abraham's response, "Here I am." Well, you jump further down into the story. Abraham has brought some other people with him, and him and Isaac are going to go off, and they're going to worship. And as they're walking up the mountain, Abraham is walking with his son, and his son says this. He says in verse 7, "My father." And Abraham replies, "Here I am, my son." He said, "Behold the fire and the wood, where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" And then Abraham responds, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." And so you notice that phrase again, "Here I am." And then it pops up again in verse 11. "But the angel of the Lord called to him," that being Abraham, "from heaven and said, 'Abraham, Abraham.' And he said, 'Here I am.'" I think what's a cool reminder just for us to think about midweek is that we all know at the end of the story how that kind of unfolds in a different way than what the story's leading on to. Rather than Abraham literally having to sacrifice his son, there's a ram given in its place. And we can see kind of the idea that's unfolding here that we'll see in the New Testament. Like, Abraham is almost this godlike figure who is going to sacrifice his son. And instead, we get another sacrifice, which, again, represents Jesus being the ram, the one that's on the altar who sacrificed, whose blood covered this situation in particular. And I think what's incredible about this moment here is that when we get to the end of the story, we can kind of reflect back on the middle of the story. And we hear that phrase, "Here I am, here I am, here I am," over and over again. And so when we get to the end of the story and we recognize that Abraham is a reflection of God, it seems as if throughout the story, it's God saying, "Here I am, here I am, here I am." It's just this constant reminder that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You don't know what your future is going to look like. You can try and guess. You can try and figure out some other alternative, some other solution. But ultimately, God knew the process in which he was taking Abraham and ultimately Isaac through. And so there's a lot of trust there, a lot of trust in the story. But I think it's an incredible reminder all at the same time that God is reminding us that he's there. And he's saying, "Here I am, here I am, here I am." So I just wanted you to be reminded of that this week. As you think about your own faith and you think about your own spiritual walk, to just think about God walking with you in life, being a part of what's going on. And you might not know what the future looks like. You might not know how things will unfold, how certain relationships will unfold, how certain scenarios will unfold. But I think that God's reminding us that he's saying the phrase, whispering to us, "Here I am." So let's pray, and then we will divide up into our classes. God, we're thankful tonight of the reminder from your word that you are always there for us. We're reminded that you are always near, that your spirit fills us and goes with us everywhere that we go, that we are vessels bringing heaven to earth. God, we're thankful that in uncertainty, in times of not knowing what the future looks like, in times of just no control, we find you saying the phrase, "Here I am," to us. And tonight I pray that just deeply saturates our souls, that it just finds the deepest parts of who we are, and we know that you are with us. That as we go and we deal with life and we deal with relationships and we live, that you are always there with us. And I pray that that's a comfort to all of us. I pray that that's a peace and a joy to all of us. It's not something that we're worried about or something that we're burdened by. But God, I just pray that that's something that we can find ultimate rest in. God, we know that you call yourself our refuge and a safe place for all of us to go. And I just pray tonight that we will let our souls rest in you. That we know that we can say the words that we love you without having to add an asterisk to it to fine print all of the wrong things that we've done, but that when we tell you that we love you, you say those words in return. So God, we're just thankful for your love. We're thankful deeply tonight and a lot of gratitude around the hope that we have in you. Spirit, you fill us, and I pray that you will continue to guide all of us as a community, as Christians, as we are spiritually formed tonight and for the rest of our lives. I pray that you will lead us and we will follow. God, we love you. Jesus, thank you for your sacrifice on the cross. And Holy Spirit, continue to fill us. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I love when it gets quiet and somebody's still laughing, Jaron, and your laugh just, amplifies. All right, well, good evening, everybody. Just kind of waiting for 5th grade, 6th grade to shut their door there. There we go. There, you notice this change in volume. It's just zoom. Well, I hope your week's going great, and so glad that you made an effort to be here tonight. It's difficult, isn't it? On these nights that it gets dark early, it's like you just want to shut down and not do anything, especially when it's raining. And I thought, my goodness, there's going to be 3 people here tonight, so thank you for showing up. So glad that you made an effort, and we love you guys, and just hope that your week is going great. We're going to continue in James tonight. I hope you're enjoying this study. I love this study. Like I've said before, it's an extremely practical book, and the section that we're going to cover tonight is one of those that, again, just smacks you in the face, is so helpful yet so difficult to actually put into practice. But if we can put it into practice, it will make us and our community look like Christ more and more and more. So open your Bibles to James chapter 3, and I'm going to get somebody to read for us here in just a second, verses 1 through 12. This has been one of the most powerful forces in the world, and it can either bring life, it can bring death, it can either bring harmony, it can bring chaos, it can bring peace, it can bring war. It's one of the most feared and one of the most praised things in the world, and each one of you possess one. You know what it is? If you've read James 3, you know what it is. It's your tongue. Your tongue. It's this small 2 to 3 inch skeletal muscle covered with mucous membrane, and it's so dangerous, and it's so lethal. I mean, it's so dangerous that God chose to imprison it behind bones, and to enable you to keep it closed, which you should, and you'll understand that tonight. And it's talked about in such a way that it should make us pause when we read this and think about what we say, what we do, and the ways that we use our tongue, the ways that we use our words. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. The very first verse here that somebody's going to read, I have to say, is one of the most fearful verses in the Bible to me. And you'll understand that as soon as somebody reads it. It's a verse that's always given me pause, and it's a verse that always brings humility to me, and it makes me take seriously what I do. And anytime I present the Word of God and open it up and I'm going to talk about it, I have to be extremely careful. And that's why a lot of times you'll hear me preface and say, there are things I'm going to teach that are going to be wrong. You just need to know that. I'm a flawed human. But I'm going to do my best to teach the truth, to pursue truth, and to do the will of God as I stand and sit before you as a teacher. And the reason I take that position is because of this verse right here. So somebody read for us James 3, 1 through 12.
guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships.
All right, so just like James, it's in your face, straightforward, get to the point. We're not beating around the bush, we're not mincing words. Here's what it is, and here's how it acts, and here's how you treat it. And so let's break this down and think about what we can learn from what James is saying in this portion of this letter. Well, obviously that first part, I told you, it scares me. And so anytime you choose to teach or be a teacher, you need to do so humbly, and you need to do so knowing that you're going to need grace and that you need to offer grace. And you always want to take that position of humility. And we're going to talk a lot about that throughout tonight. Now, apparently, several people in the assembly that would have received this letter are wanting to teach and lead because James has to warn them. Slow down. Not many of you should be teachers, and here's why. And it's because those of you who teach, you're going to face stricter judgment. So teachers must use their tongues to share God's truth, and it's terrible when those appointed to teach God's truth or those in those positions, it's terrible when they sin with their tongue or when they manipulate with their tongue or when they try and control people with their will instead of God's will. So teachers must practice what they preach. They must practice what they teach. You can't be a hypocrite, or else you're just taking the name in vain. You're bearing the name of God and yet not living it out. And your teaching is a hypocrisy. And that's why there's this stricter judgment and kind of this bigger warning here that he just starts out with. And so James has just finished, remember, he's just finished talking about a faith that works, a mature faith. And he's tying this idea of maturity to this chapter as well, even though he didn't write it in chapters. He's tying it to the way this letter flows. Control of your tongue is a sign of spiritual maturity, right? So if you're flying off the handle all the time, if you can't control your tongue, if you're quick to speak, slow to listen, and quick to wrath, it's a sign of immaturity within you. And so he's tying all of this together. He says a person who is never at fault in what they say is perfect. He's just saying there's nobody like that. He's just saying if nobody is ever at fault in what they say, they're perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. Now, is James making a mistake connecting the sins of the tongue with the sins of the whole body? Why would he make that connection? What do you think there? How do the sins of what you say connect to the sins or the deeds of the body? The reflection of the heart. And what you say usually leads to what you do, doesn't it, Rick? Yeah, they're usually connected. During World War II, there were posters that read, "Loose lips sink ships." And they posted these posters around. And the gist of the particular slogan was that one should avoid speaking about ship movements if they knew there's ship movements, because this talk, if directed at or overheard by covert enemy agents, it might allow the enemy to intercept and destroy the ships. And apparently this was happening, or else they wouldn't have had to put the posters out. Loose lips sink ships. And loose lips also wreck lives. Loose lips wreck congregations. Loose lips cause division. It only takes one unguarded statement, and you may find yourself involved in a conflict. Have you been there before? Or you say one thing, married people, I know I'm talking to you. You say one thing, and you think, why in the world did I say that stupid thing? You know, it was the one thing you knew you shouldn't have said, and you brought it out anyways, and now you're regretting it because now you are in a conflict. Carmen, quit nudging Trey. That's not fair. But you know how powerful words are. Or our tongue may force the rest of our body to defend itself. What is significant about James's illustration of a horse bit or a ship rudder here? What's significant about this? What do you think when you hear him make that illustration? What's the power of that illustration to you?
It's a small thing that's controlling a bigger
they're small, but they have great power, right? They exercise great power, just like the tongue. So, yeah, a small bit enables a rider to control a mighty, powerful, strong horse, and then a rudder, steers this entire ship. The tongue is a small member of the body, and yet it has the power to direct your life, to direct your body and your deeds and your wills and your power. And it has the power to absolutely destroy, or it has the power to accomplish really great things. Both the bit and the rudder must overcome opposing forces. The bit must overcome the wild nature of the horse, and the rudder must fight against the winds and the currents that would drive the ship off its course. Also, the human tongue must overcome contrary forces. And so you get some wisdom literature here that speaks to what James is highlighting. In Proverbs, it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. In Psalms 141, David prayed, he said, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth, keep the doors of my lips. Incline not my heart to any evil thing. And so the bit and the rudder, they have the power to direct, which means they have the power to not only affect your life, they have the power to affect other people's lives as well. A runaway horse can cause serious injury and damage, not just to you, but to other people as well. A ship that's off course can take out a whole other ship, can take out a whole dock, a whole port. These things have power. The words we speak not only affect our lives, but they affect the lives of the people around us. James wants to make it clear, never underestimate the guidance you give by the words you speak or do not speak. You have the power to direct here. How have you seen this power play out in your life, either positively or negatively? You don't have to give me a specific example, just give me a general example. How have you seen the power of words play out in your life, either positively or negatively? Yeah, Dina. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good for you. It does, and I love that. And that's an outstanding example. I've seen it in my own kids' lives. We used to, Amanda and I had to talk about this because we would always say things, you see your kids' personalities, you see their strengths and maybe their weaknesses, and you start to talk about those, and you talk about those in front of other people. And we had to check ourselves because we would say things not in a negative way, but they were seen as negatives. It'd be like, oh, Ever, he's quiet, he's introverted, he's not as outgoing. And we would say that in front of people, and then we see Ever kind of play into that mindset when really we want him to be more outgoing. And then we'd encourage him to be more outgoing. It's like, well, we've already spoken to who you are and to who you believe you are. And when you speak to somebody's identity, it really has power in their lives, whether positive or negative. Yeah. What else? Great example. Y'all are smart. Brittany.
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but
Looking for anything.
I remember when I lost my voice one time, and I wasn't able to say to my kids what I wanted to say. Like, I was angry at something that they had done. I could not say it. So because of that, it kind of made me think, oh, because I'd have to whisper, and they'd get closer to like hear what I was saying, and it was just a more calm atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I had my voice and I was, I told you not to do that, it just kind of made me step back and think.
Yeah.
I really need to watch
Yeah, so tone, not just what you say, but the tone, the different, the ways you raise and lower, the body language behind what you say, all influential in whether it's, in which way it's directing, negatively or positively. Kayla was talking about you'd speak quieter in your class, and it would get your kids' attention more, kind of similar to that. Yeah. Somebody raise their hand over here. Trey. Mm-hmm. I quote that movie all the time. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. When it's not controlled. Right. Absolutely. Right. The bit. Yeah. Yeah, it has the power to direct one way or the other. It also has the power to destroy. So verses 5 through 8 highlight this. Listen to what James says again. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the body parts. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and itself is set on fire by hell. All right, James, don't hold back on us. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil full of deadly poison. It's almost like James is like, just cut it out and throw it away. I mean, that's the way he's talking about it. And you don't have to elaborate much on this one because there's no, let's look at the language and see what James is trying to say. We don't need to get the context. That's what I'm saying about James is straightforward, sock you in the face, the way he talks. Anybody can read this and get it. And so, living in Oklahoma, we were well acquainted with wildfires. There were grass fires all the time, and you would just see smoke randomly, especially during the summer, just big billows of smoke, and you could tell when it was a grass fire because of a certain color, and you could smell it. Plus, you can see everything in Oklahoma for miles and miles away. But one day, this is not a picture of where we were, it's just an illustration, but several years ago, we were at home, and it was the middle of the day, and I think it was a Saturday, and we got a knock on our door from a police officer. And I'm like, oh, great, what am I to do this time, you know? And he's like, come out quick. And I think we had Evie and Ever. We didn't have Forrest yet. And I walk outside. We live next to a huge open field. It's all houses now, but this whole field was on fire. And these cedars were in there, and they were just, the wind was blowing crazy, dry as a bone. These cedars were just going up in fire tornadoes, and it was so fast and so cool. And me being kind of a pyro, I'm like, yeah, like not worried at all about my house, but I'm like, this is so cool. And he's like, y'all need to get your stuff and get out of the house because it was burning towards our house. So I go get my little green water hose and like water my house down like it's going to do anything. And then we jump in the car and go to the hotel. Thankfully, it burned south. I think that it doesn't matter. South, not towards our house, but just understanding and knowing how quickly a wildfire can spread and the damage that it can do. And having witnessed that firsthand really puts power into these verses. And if you pay attention to the news, of course, you know out in California, like every year, and it seems to get worse and worse and worse, more and more acreage is burning. And James is saying our words can start fires just as terrifying and just as destructive. Look at some wisdom literature here for you. Proverbs 26. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. Have you ever had that experience of saying something that starts a fire and later on you really wish you wouldn't have said it? and then you stand back and you kind of watch the damage that it does. And so it's not just affecting you, now it's affecting a lot of people. And I think we've all experienced that to some extent. Thing is, a lot of times you don't even have to say the words. You don't even have to use your tongue. You can type it in a Facebook post or type it on any social media platform, and it can do just as much damage, can it? Just to type the words out, just to say something, just to take a stance, and can create this huge fire, and then you're reeling back trying to figure out how to put the fire out and wishing that you never would have lit the match in the first place. That fire, by the way, next to our house, it burnt, I think, oh man, it burns. It was hundreds of acres that it burnt. And it started from our neighbor's grill that blew over during a burn ban. It was charcoal grill, and it was cool, not cool, but cool, because you could see like his backyard. It started right here, and it burned out like this, took their fence out, and then went through the field in a matter of seconds. I was like, that's so cool. But nobody lost their house, so that was good, just farmland. But just the power that your words have can be so devastating. It defiles, it makes something uninhabitable, and it's not just the fire, but the smoke. It's tainted with a bad odor, and it only takes one negative comment out of your mouth about someone to taint my view of that person. Have you experienced this before? Like somebody that you don't know really well, and then somebody you do know well, they say something negative about that person before you ever even get to know that person. And so that smoke gets put out, and all of a sudden, your view of them is kind of tainted before you ever even knew who they were. And then you view them negatively, and maybe you've had this experience. I've had it quite a bit. You get to know them, and you're like, my word, they were nothing like that. I was so wrong about them. Have you had this experience? It's the power of words. Regardless of whether it's true or not true, just saying it can do so much damage. Paul says, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. So James not only talks about the tongue like a fire, but it's also like a dangerous animal that we cannot tame without the help of God. When you think about that, some animals are poisonous, some animals are venomous. That's like a pet peeve of mine. If somebody says that's a poisonous snake, I'm like, no, it's not. It's venomous. It's like just a pet peeve of mine. Sorry. But, some things are like they bite you and inject venom into you, and then some things you touch them, they're poison, like a poison dart frog, stuff like that. All right, we clear on that? Hey, pet peeve over. If you ever see one of these little boogers in the ocean, do not pick it up, okay? It's a marbled cone snail. One drop of its poison is so powerful, or it's venomous, sorry. I even messed up my own. One drop of its venom is so powerful, it can kill more than 20 people. And symptoms of a cone snail sting, they start immediately, and then they're delayed for days. So it's like you may hurt immediately, and then you'll feel better, and then days later, you're like in the hospital. That's how this venom works. It includes intense pain, swelling, numbness, tingling, severe cases like muscle paralysis and breathing failure and death. Bad deal. There's no antivenom known. We don't have antivenom for this snail. So don't pick one of these little dudes up if you see it. However, only about 30 human deaths have been recorded from cone snail envenomation. And so you're doing good. Just stay out of the ocean. The ocean's terrifying anyways. So the deceptive thing about poison is that it works secretly. It works slowly, and then it kills. And James says the tongue is a deadly poison. How many times, like we've talked about, Has someone injected a bit of venom or a bit of poison into your conversation, and you didn't notice initially? Maybe they say something about someone, and you don't really notice it. You kind of brush it off initially. And they say, I'm not saying she does that. I just heard that she does that. And you kind of brush it off, and you're like, oh, yeah, I bet she does. Totally. And then it just starts to create a burn, and it slowly erodes your view of that person. And James reminds us here, he's so straightforward about this. Animals can be tamed, and for that matter, fire can be tamed. When you tame an animal, you get a worker instead of a destroyer. When you control fire, you can generate great power. And he says, the tongue cannot be tamed by man. It's like, don't even try. The tongue cannot be tamed by you. It can only be tamed by God. Your tongue need not be set on fire, the fire of hell, he says. But if God starts the fire and controls it, then the tongue can be a great tool for bringing people to Christ and for bringing heaven to earth. And the important thing, of course, is the heart. Like Rick said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, Matthew chapter 12. Everything that comes out of your mouth is coming from your heart. If your heart is filled with hatred, if your heart is filled with bitterness, then the enemy is going to control that fire. If your heart is filled with love, then God is going to control that fire because he's the one that put it in you, and the Spirit is going to control that fire. So you have the power to direct with your tongue. You have the power to destroy with your tongue. You also have the power to delight. Somebody read these verses for us again. You like my 3 Ds tonight? I don't do a lot of the 3 points with the same letter. That's very much a Jeff Jenkins thing, and I'll go to it every now and then. Yeah. Somebody read these for us.
With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings, who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. Our brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water.
All right, so get what James is saying here and the irony of it. With the very thing that God created, we turn around and we curse the creation, or we curse the Creator. With the very thing that's created, we turn around and we curse the one who created it. And he's saying, brothers and sisters, this should not be. You start to hear James get real serious here. It's almost like a tone shift. He's like, let me be straight with you. Can both fresh water and salt water come from the same spring? Listen, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Can something that was created for good actually produce evil? And the point is, he's saying, then why are you, a creation of God, a child of God, created to do good works and glorify God, Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 10, spouting out this useless nonsense? Why are you just spreading wildfires like crazy? Why are you steering people and causing division and causing hate and using what God gave you and what God created to let the enemy win? And that's in your marriages. That's in the church. That's in your friendships. That's at your job. Why are you using what God gave you to bring about life, and you're using it to bring about death? A little more wisdom literature for you here. Proverbs 18, the words of a man's mouth are deep waters, and the fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook. Proverbs 10, the lips of the righteous feed many. And then John 6, Jesus said, the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. I mean, the tongue has the power to direct, it has the power to destroy, and it also has the power to delight. I don't think any of us in here would deny that at one point or another, or maybe even currently, we have a problem with our words. We have a problem with our tongues. Some of us struggle more than others, but I think each of us need to find a way to tame the beast that it is. Even today, I got home and I caught myself. I'm like, man, I'm about to go teach on this, and here I am being a doofus. I got home, I'm just tired, it's dark, and the kids been fighting. Man, we just cart kids around all the time. All we do is Uber kids. I say that, but that's literally our lives. It's just Ubering kids around. And they fight nonstop. Like, they fight nonstop. And I'm like, guys, stop. I'm just spewing fire. I'm just spewing fire with my tongue. I get the kids home, and Amanda's been working on stuff, and she asked me a question, and I'm just not having it. I'm like, she asked my opinion and then told me my opinion was wrong, and I just fire. Here it comes. Like, then why did you ask me my opinion? If it wasn't the right answer, then why did you even want my opinion? Husbands, you been there? Yeah. Maybe you've been there this afternoon. I thought, man, here I am being quick to speak, quick to wrath, and after she restated what she said, I was like, I wasn't even really listening to what she said. I just wasn't in the mood to talk. And there I was, not delighting, not bringing about good. James says, be quick to listen, slow to speak. Remember, he said that in chapter 1. And be slow to become angry. Abraham Lincoln said this. He said, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouths and remove all doubt. You heard that quote before? I prefer silence, by the way. I like silence. James says, bite your tongues more often. In James chapter 1, he says, if anyone considers himself religious and does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless. Refuse to tear other people down. James 4 and 5, he says, brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Do not grumble against each other, brothers, or you will be judged. James 5, he talks about only speaking what is true. Above all, brothers, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, or you will be condemned. I mean, he's so just point blank on all of this. And then the last thing, certainly not an exhaustive list, but surrender your tongue to God. In James 3, he says, but no man can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil, full of deadly poison. You can't obey or submit to any 5 of these without God. Like, you're not going to do this on your own. And this sin, the sin of the tongue, is just like any other sin. You're not going to overcome it on your own power, by your own will, by your own strength. It's only through submission to God that you're going to overcome. It's only through submission to God that he's going to help you become more like Christ and more like the human that he created you to be in the Garden of Eden. And so before you speak something, let me give you some helpful tools here that I need to abide by myself. Before you say something, ask yourself a few questions. Is it true? Is what I'm about to say true? And even if it is true, so if it's not true, just stop, right? That's a good cue to not say it. Like, if you think it's true, but you're not 100% true, just don't say it. But even if it is true, you need to ask a few more questions. Is it necessary? Is what I'm about to say necessary? Is this going to bring life, or is this going to bring destruction? And Jesus says we're going to be judged for every careless word. There are so many things that we say that are just unnecessary, so many things we say that are just unbeneficial, and we're going to stand before God, and those are going to be brought up. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if every careless word we've ever said is going to be brought up. I don't know. That's terrifying to think about. Because I'll be like, God, I don't remember that one. I don't remember 99.9% of these that I said. Is it necessary? Third, is it beneficial? Is what I'm going to say going to build you up or tear you down? Am I speaking out of pride, out of a defensive stance? Am I just firing off so that I can be the bigger person and can belittle you, or so that I can win an argument that has no benefit whatsoever of winning? There's no beneficial outcome to winning this argument except that I feel right. Is it beneficial? Fourth, do I have permission to share it? Before you speak, think about what kind of friend you're being. If somebody told you something, they confided in you, did they even want me to share this? That's why you're slow to speak. Do I have permission to share this? And then the fifth one, finally, ask yourself, is my motive pure? Why am I saying this? We all struggle with our tongues from varying to varying degrees. But this is not some extra thing that God is requesting of us. This is not some you need to do this along with a bunch of other things. And this is not some just you can choose to take it or leave it kind of thing. James talks about this in the sense that it's a mandate for the follower of Christ. It's a mandate for the person who wants to be a disciple of Christ. God can use your tongues to guide others into the way of life and to sustain them in the trials of life. God can use your words to build people up and admonish each other and not tear each other down, and to build the community up and encourage the community and not divide the community, to build your marriage up and not divide your marriage, to build your kids up and not beat them down again and again and give them false senses of identity. If you're a leader, if you're a boss, you can use your words to build a company, to build a corporation, to truly build a great team and to bring about goodness and life, or you can absolutely destroy the people that work for you. It's very, very powerful. And may we use our tongues each and every day in our speech to bring life and to bring heaven to earth, and may we submit our speech to Him, the only one that can tame it. That's all I got. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Thoughts on anything that we've talked about tonight? Beneficial things that you've found in your life as a disciple? Lana. Goes a long way, doesn't it? Absolutely. Trey?
I was just going to say, I know this lesson is mostly about being quiet and not saying stuff, and when in doubt, keep your mouth shut. Sure, it's got me in trouble so many times. So, but I was going to flip the other side of this. It's pretty rare, but what I'm thinking of is I know a person who withholds affection and doesn't tell their kids they love them.
Yeah.
And so there's an example where, I know it's not what the lesson's mostly about, but
No, it is. It is.
It's so powerful that if you don't say something you need to say, you can do a lot of damage.
Right.
So to dads in here especially, because we don't like to be emotional or touchy-feely or whatever, but if you love your kid or you love somebody, you need to tell them. And I heard a phrase one time that said, if you don't love somebody, you shouldn't say you do. But if you do, you should
love that. That's so important, and that's obviously a God-given thing that we need to do with our speech. That brings life. That brings goodness. Yeah, Camille.
This has to do with the horses, and I'm just gonna say it, we have a lot of experience.
I saw your kids riding bareback on the pictures.
And I was gonna say.
Studs.
In some of those pictures, Sophia only had, they only have halters on
Right.
horses. And we've had this happen multiple times, but our parents' house is like an eighth of a mile from the barn where the horses get fed.
Yeah.
And on that stretch is pavement. And so Ava one time was just chilling, sitting on the horse, and the horse decided, I'm ready to go back to the barn. She had given it a bath and all that, and so she let her guard down, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting on the horse, and when they decide they want to go home, he flew down the highway. It was terrifying, because he
Yeah.
made a right-hand turn off of pavement to the barn. I mean, like a life-threatening situation for Ava when she was little. Anyway, didn't have a business mouth.
Yeah.
And so Sophia was doing the same thing on Sunday, just riding around at the house with a halter. And I was like, Sophia, that is dumb. That is so, like, have we not learned? And so anyway, it's just a very, I guess my point is, like, it happens when you let your guard down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, this is a good reminder not, to pay attention to that. Because we do let our guard down, and, people can get hurt or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thought. By the way, Everett wants to ride horses. I told him I'd hook him up with y'all. I'm terrified of horses, so I'm not going to have anything to do with it because I was thrown too many times as a kid. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. Other thoughts on tonight, the topic? I lost my watch, so if we're going over, you have to tell me. 3 minutes. 3 really good comments. Oh, sorry, Russ. I thought you were telling me 3 minutes. Russ, go.
Beneficial, if you're trying to turn someone from sin, they may not perceive it as beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had that regret that I didn't say something that I didn't want to offend,
Right.
but it wasn't helpful.
Yep.
I said it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard discernment to make a lot of times, especially as an elder. You know that, but even as just a friend to somebody, it's hard to know how to speak life gently and in love, and use words to build up rather than tear down. Dina? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we need grace. We got to have grace when people say hurtful things to us. And kind of in the sense of what Russ is saying, if somebody comes to us with life-giving words and correcting words even, we need to show grace to that in a sense. Wayne, and then Justin will finish up.
Several years ago, my youngest daughter Katie was struggling with this work decision, leaving her job, took another job, and moved. I challenged her in the job she was in, and I had a good friend who, he kind of provoked me over that. Said, I think you expect too much of her. So our next conversation, I really thought about that, and I said, you need to know you surpassed my expectations a long time ago.
What a great thing to say.
And she went on and made that next step, and it was such a relief for her, and then we have to think about that. Are we going too far? Are we expecting too much? Do we give them assurance to move on to the next step?
Yeah, I really love that. What a great thing for a dad to say. It's like, I'm not pushing you in this so that I can be more proud of you. I couldn't be more proud of you. I just see the potential in you. Yeah. Justin.
In this example, you're using a horse and a bit, and I think sometimes we forget that next to that bit is the rein.
Mm-hmm.
And that example that I'm using there is an example of maybe knowing when to stop.
For sure.
And so, that's just kind of my opinion.
Yeah, you know, and we'll get to rolling because we want to be in the know. We want to be funny. We want to be liked. Or a lot of times we're just, when you meet chronically negative people, it's just all they know how to say. You know, it just rolls out. And it's like, those reins need to be pulled. You're right. We need to pull those reins on ourselves and just shut up sometimes. Rick?
I found that when people speak or repost things, if they're generalizations about people, they probably should not be said or repeated.
For sure.
Those lynchers, those freeloaders, those
Mm.
Democrats, those Republicans, those Mexicans, those Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
that it should have no place within the Christian community.
Yeah. Libertarians, we're always left out, man. Just leaving us out, yeah. Yeah, the generalizations are never really helpful or beneficial, right? Yeah, Kim?
I want to thank you for doing Cool Speak, because I
It's-
cannot tell you how encouraging that was, not only for our kids, and I know I cry every time, and it's embarrassing for me, but like, for parents too. When it was James's turn, he had a really tough week that week
Mm.
at school. And nobody knew that, and Adam and I had to share that, and that's what breathed life into not only him at the perfect time that he did it, but Adam and I too, because we were like, "We're all here."
We've never said these things to our kids. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad. It's been one of my favorite things. Adult Speak was amazing as well. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And then a few of us, Ashley put together kind of just a prayer thing at Lonnie's this week. And everybody was praying together, and just a couple of us went over to Lonnie's and prayed with him. And you could see the life perk up in Lonnie just from those few words that those moments that we spent with him. It's so powerful to speak positive, encouraging things. And as we sat with Lonnie, we literally just told him how much we love him and how much he means to us. And if we could do that with everybody, I mean, you'll see a community that shows Christ through and through and through. So let's keep going with that. We're out of time. No, go ahead, Camille.
I'll keep it really short. I know it's already, but another thing that happened was today we rode over here. I just rode with Isabel, just us two. Today's her birthday, and so we had.
Wait, on horses? Or are we still on horses or what? No, okay.
So we drove over, and so today's her birthday, and I wanted to bring her over to have a little extra time with her. But in that 30-minute drive, there were several times I wanted to say something, mostly about her driving, but I didn't. Bit my tongue, because I'm like, it's her birthday, and I was really good about choosing my words, and because I was like, this is special 30 minutes, and I was like, you talking, I was like, why don't I treat every time I'm with her like it's special, like why,
It's
made me think of it. No, I'm just saying, instead of just jabbering the whole way over here, it was like, I feel like on a holiday, we don't just talk about anything, we're like, oh, it's a special day. Maybe we should.
you try and be intentional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe if I treated every time I'm with that person like this is a special time, maybe I would choose my words more carefully. It just made me think.
Yeah, we just got to be mindful and just pause and think about it more. And I think we can be better at that. Yeah, for sure. All right, thanks for your comments. I love you all so much, and have a great night.
Yeah.